But really, this is a gift, really, if you think about it, to talk about all of these things on a Friday afternoon, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Andrew, can you make me co-host, please? And we should be good to go.
Okay. All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. We will, I guess it's okay to start. Agenda today, we will just go through revenues. We have an inventory of current revenues, our preliminary revenues for 2023, and the assumptions that got us to those numbers. Expenditures, just base budget, where we are with the budget, and then if anybody has any other business to discuss.
Hey, Amy, it's kind of hard to hear you.
Okay. Let me check my. Hold on. Is that better?
Yes.
Better for me.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, you want me to go back over the agenda, Councilor Shade, or are we good? Okay, so revenues. I sent you all last night, I hope you got it, an inventory of our revenues or our fees that we're currently collecting. Did you all get that? Because my staff for some reason didn't get it, so I just want to make sure you all got it.
I got it.
Okay. Okay, so we
The numbers are hard to read, but we got it.
I know, I understand. So it just kind of showed you all the fees we're currently collecting and then when they were last updated. So I'll just go through that and I can switch off of this and go, and we can go through that list if you want to or not. It's up to you. But basically recreation fees, the last time they really updated was 2018. There was a couple, or 2008, I'm sorry, a couple that were done in 17 and 18. And if you remember when we were going over their request list for 2023, they have asked to increase those fees in 2023. So those would be updated if we approve their request to increase those fees. One area that has not been looked at is recreation facility fees, and they're very complicated. So we've been talking about that and how we need to restructure, and we'll do that in 2023 to take a good look at those fees. Any questions on recreation? Okay.
Amy, I
public
have
service?
one question for you.
Sure.
On the street closures, some of these street closures, I presume, are for like road races.
You're talking about TNT ones?
Yes.
I don't, probably yes.
Do we make any distinction with these nonprofit organizations on these fees?
So I don't think so, Councilor Shea. That's kind of all goes through special events, and I'm not exactly, but we can look at how that's done, how it goes through special events committee and all of that, and how those fees are determined. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but we can get back with you on that if that's okay.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up to you because last Saturday was the Avondale Run,
Right.
which is a small event. I think maybe 500 participants. And I met with the race sponsors, and they were talking to me about the expense of road closures and what we were charging. I think they may have been confused with what the county was charging them as well, but I was a little concerned about a nonprofit that size, what their fees were, but because in addition to what we're charging them for road closures, it's the public safety officers out there as well. So anyhow.
Yeah. So those would go through special events, Councilmember Shea. That's not really, I mean, the other fees through TNT, I think that's for other means. It's not special events, but I'll get with them and get you some kind of fee structure, how they kind of determine that. Okay.
Amy, a question. I guess the enterprise manager will be coming on soon, so I guess there'll be some discussion of other revenues for the city as well, I guess, for next year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so
Correct,
whatever,
Rachel.
when they get in here and get started, I'm sure they'll be looking at that and sponsorships and how we can do, collect more through that. But so typically if we raise fees in the next year, if we do it in a budget year, then we're conservative with that to see how they come in, and then we'll budget more for them in the following year. We always want to make sure, see how they work. So we would have that opportunity in 23 to see what that enterprise manager comes up with, so that we have better data, so that we could budget for it in 2024. So whatever we do in 23 is we always say it's gravy, basically.
Okay,
what it
very
would be.
good. Thank you.
Sure. Public service, most of the fees were adjusted in 2019. Engineering fees have not been adjusted recently, so we've begun conversations with them about updating those fees in 2023. TNT, they were just adjusted in 21 with new fees created. That was the right-of-way obstructions. This one fee, the certificate of public conveyance, has not been updated since 2015. So that's also one that we can look at. Planning preservation, they were all updated in 22. Fire marshal's office, those were updated in 2020. Stormwater permits and fees, they're not the stormwater utility fee. These are just other fees that we collect for permits, and they were last updated in July of 2020. Livability and tourism, we're not really sure. We're working with them on their fees, so that's something else we'll be working on in 23. And then there are fees we have no control over. Municipal court user fees, those are all set by the state. Same with police fines and forfeitures. Our hospitality municipal accommodations are set by ordinance, and both at 2%, and we're grandfathered into those percentages. And state accommodations is also set by the state at 2%. And so I think we just need to develop a policy that dictates how often we will review, if it's like every 2 years, just to make sure that we are looking at them on a regular basis so that we're covering our costs. Do you want to go through the list real quick, or do you want to just move on?
Move on.
Councilmember O'Hell?
Yeah, I mean, when you say recovering costs, are we still operating under a paradigm where that means the cost to serve that fee payor, or are we talking about costs more broadly?
I'm talking about what it costs us to, what our administrative costs are in relation to those fees, if that makes sense.
So super fine distinction here, but it's one of significance, I promise, is that for a very long time in South Carolina, these fees had to be set so that the amount of the fee was calibrated precisely to the cost the government bore in providing that service to that payor. And that's how we've structured our fees for years, it seems. That rule has now changed. And what I'm trying to understand is, have we incorporated that change into the way that we're evaluating this? Because, for example, I'm looking at technical review committee site plan review fee of $710. I know how much time and energy our staff and our entire city puts into reviewing a site plan of a complicated nature. And I'm willing to bet Peter a drink in a parking lot tomorrow afternoon in Columbia that it's more than $710. And when we talk about making sure we've got enough revenue to fund these various departments, and we look at the new state laws that have changed, I just want to be clear, we're availing ourselves of all of the opportunities we have to make these fees commensurate with the actual cost it takes to provide these services and employ the staff and do all the different things that we need to do.
So I think we're saying the same thing. I think, but so that law just came in. We've not looked at these fees since that law changed. So we're looking at them in 2023. So the answer to your question is yes and no, I guess.
Got it. So these new fees do not reflect sort of the new paradigm. That's for a separate That's for next
These
year?
are current fees, so they're not new fees, they're current fees, and we haven't looked at to make sure that they're commensurate with what it takes for us to provide the service, I guess is what I'm saying. So that's what we need to do, and then we need to make sure that we're doing it on a more consistent basis to keep up with our COLAs and all of that at the same time.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
It does. And I think this is the right conversation to be having, and this is a real opportunity for the city to function more like a business and make sure that our costs are or our fees rather are set in a manner to offset costs more holistically. So thank you for everything on.
Sure. Any other questions on that?
Amy, I just have one question about municipal court fees.
Yes.
I do know, and what you've got here is accurate. The certain fees that are kicked in by law, and the state collects a portion of that stuff.
Mhm.
But some of our basic fees are set by ordinance. Because it depends on whether or not the ticket or the summons is written for a municipal ordinance versus a state related ordinance. Like, for instance, speeding would be a state violation. And I know for certain that's probably set by state law, plus the added fees that go along with it. But I think if a violation is written for like a livability violation, I think we've got control over that, don't we?
So if you see above that, Councilmember Shea, the livability and the tourism fees, that's kind of where we're not exactly sure when they've last been updated. So we're working with them on that. So you are right, and some fees are set by us, but I was just talking specifically about the court user fees and things like that we don't have control over.
Right. Yeah, there's a distinction with that. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page with that. That's fine.
Okay. Anything else?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
So we'll look at our preliminary revenues, what we have right now for our 2023 budget. This is what it looks like. It's about with general fund transfer, with our transfers in and reserves. It's around $218 million for the general fund and almost $41 million for enterprise. So it's around $259 million, which is about $5.3 million more than what we budgeted in 2022. Just remember preliminary, right? And our assumptions into that, Charleston County projected growth rates for vehicles is about 1%, 3% for all the other real property, which is about where we kind of keep it every year. Projected tax credit factor is 0.0092, and 2022 we set that at 0.0094. Amount of loss credited would be $28.3 million. For Berkeley County, 5% for vehicles and 6% for all other property, and the tax credit factors you can see 0.00507. We did 0.00523 for 2022, and loss credited would be almost $3 million. And just so you know, our value of a mill is still $1.7 million.
So Amy, why the distinction, the huge gap between Charleston and Berkeley County on these growth rates?
We're just noticing that Berkeley counties, they're just growing fast. Their growth rate is bigger than it is for Charleston County. And remember, Berkeley County is a smaller subset of the city as well. It's been like that for years.
Amy, could you go back to that prior slide for just a second?
This
By the
one?
way, hi, everybody. Sorry I was late. I was tied up with a school board meeting. Tell me about that $5.5 million difference from 23 and 22 on general fund, TI and reserves.
So we probably may have had more fund transfers in from the capital improvement fund for projects. I'm guessing that's probably what that is. Oh, well, no, it's not actually. I think it's a hospitality fee mostly, because I don't have any hospitality fee revenues transferring in this slide because I want to talk to you all about that later. So that's what the biggest difference is, Mayor. I'll have a slide that includes a transfer in from hospitality fee later.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I know I confused everybody. I'm sorry. Everybody's good with property taxes? Okay.
How does that compare, that total lost credited 28 million compared to last year?
So next slide, local option sales tax. We
Yeah.
budgeted 23.7. Our
Right.
projection after 7 months is almost $28 million. We're doing really well with local option sales tax. So we're projecting 28.3 next year for Charleston County. And then for Berkeley County, also doing very well in 2022. We budgeted 2 million. We're projecting about 2.9. And we're going to keep that for 2023.
Mm-hmm. So just Charleston County, that's about a $4.5 million difference. $4 million difference. So that's about a 2 mil credit that they'll get from the LOST.
I have slides on that later, Mayor, as well.
Yeah, okay.
Business licenses, we're doing, again, very well with business licenses in 2022. We budgeted 39.7, projecting that we will collect 43 million in 2022. So we're projecting 2023 at 43.9. And then, we transfer 2% goes into the drainage fund from business license fees.
All right.
Franchise fees, these kind of fall flat. We budgeted 11.1. We actually saw for 2022 that we're estimating that to be a little higher at 11.8, which is surprising because prior years we've kind of fallen flat on those, if not decline. So we're projecting 2023 11.8 for electric and gas and 1.5 for cable. Now for cable, we're noticing a decline in those every year. So that's why we budgeted a little bit less in 2023 than 2022.
Right.
Okay. Building permits. 2022, we budgeted 3 million for permits and 2 for plan review. We're seeing that we're not collecting what we budgeted for that. We're seeing a decline in building permits and plan review. So we're projecting about 22% under budget and 16% under budget in 22 for building permits and plan review. So we backed that down a little bit for our 2023 projection. So we're projecting 2.4 and 1.6 in plan review. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too.
I had a quick question. Amy, do we think that this is to sort of the economic climate? Is that the reason interest
It's an indication of that, Councilmember Rappel. It could be an indication. I have a really fun graph to show you later.
Oh, nice.
This will make your Friday. It really will. You'll be glad that you're on this meeting on a Friday afternoon. Any questions on that? Okay, parking revenues, budgeted 19.2 for garages and lots, almost 2.9 in meters. We're projecting 22.3 and 3.2 for 2023. So our garages continue to come back in meters.
That's the 22 projection or 23?
23 projection is 22.3 and 3.2. And 2022 budgets were.
Okay.
I guess I don't have a projection of 2022 on that slide. Sorry.
I got you. So really the way you've been stating this, you would say that would be the 2023 budget.
Right.
The 22 and the 3 million. Yeah, gotcha.
That's right. So economic outlook considerations is what I talked about when I have a really fun slide. We always budget very conservatively, but with the discussions of an impending recession, we wanted to look back at the last recession and see how it affected our city revenues, especially those that are dependent on economic conditions. So we specifically looked at tourism, building fees, business license fees, and local option sales tax fees. And we noted that in the last recession that certain revenues were impacted earlier, where others took a little bit longer to be impacted. So we've been a little bit more conservative with our growth factors for those revenues, just to be cautious. So this is the fun graph I have for all of you, which kind of shows where we were at our peak before the recession, and then where we hit our lowest point, and then how long it took us to come back. So the blue dots equal the pre-recession revenue peaks right here at the bottom. And then the red horizontal bars represent the lowest level of revenue that we collected during the recession. And then the purple dots indicate the return to pre-recession levels. So most revenues hit their lowest points, the trough, in 2010, with the exception of Berkeley County lost hospitality fees and municipal accommodations fees, which all felt it in 2009. And then hospitality fees came back the quickest, which ironically, we also noticed that during the pandemic as well. So we just thought that was an interesting. And then construction related fees started to drop the earliest and took the longest to rebound. So you see all of these right here, where we saw a decline. So Councilmember Pell, that's where I'm saying it could be an indication right now, because that's kind of how it happened back in the last recession, where we saw them starting to slow, and it took a very long time for them to reach their lowest point, and then took the longest to come back at the same time. So that's why we're projecting a lower amount for those revenues for sure, just because we're seeing that indication. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. So expenditures, this is base budget. It doesn't include any of the additional requests from the departments. They all came in and talked to you about what the requests were. It doesn't include any of that. It's just fact of life safety items, and contract price increases as well. So the current draft budget includes around $220 million in expenditures and transfers out for the general fund, and about 32 for the enterprise funds, for a total of 252, almost 253 million. It also does not include additional requests that we consider to be life safety that we would put in the budget. And then just as a reminder, we received about $23 million in additional requests from the departments. So none of this is not included in any of them. So right now, just base, like I said, is about almost 253 million. It's about a $900,000 decrease from 2022. So the bottom line,
Amy, go back to that one more second, please. I'm still trying to.
Sorry.
So you're projecting a base decrease in our budget,
That's right.
the revenues. If I'm reading that right, I'm just trying to. keep
No,
up.
that's expenditures.
And this is only, okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
You're welcome. So right now, our bottom line, we have a $6.3 million surplus. But again, that doesn't include any additional expense or requests. And we'll go through that next meeting, kind of what our recommendations are, et cetera. It also does not include any pay increases for our employees either. And I just wanted to let you know that we are budgeting around $4 a gallon for fuel, because if you remember, we're under budget and it keeps fluctuating so much that will give us a little bit of a cushion for fuel should we need it. And then the transfers in that I mentioned before, Mayor, it includes preliminary budget transfers in from state accommodations, tax, municipal accommodations, but not hospitality, because I wanted to talk to y'all about that. But last year when we went through this, we had a negative, not a surplus. So that's something.
That's something.
That's something.
Yeah.
Okay. We ready to move on? Ooh. So my screen likes to go black on me occasionally. There we go. Sorry. So now I just want to talk about tourism revenues. State accommodations, we're projecting about $12 million. To transfer into the general fund is $623,750, and that's that 5% dictated by law. Just so you know that it loses its character as soon as that happens. So it's not restricted to tourism expenditures. It goes straight into the general fund for whatever we need to use it for. Municipal accommodations tax, it's 2% tax collected by hotels. Ordinance stipulates 1% go towards capital projects and 1% be utilized for operations to decrease the tax burden on our citizens. We're projecting $11 million, so 5.5 for capital projects and 5.5 for operations. Tourism ticket fee is about $375,000. That gets transferred into the general fund to help cover the cost of our tourism division. It doesn't cover the total cost, but it does cover about half.
So Amy, what is this ticket fee? What is it exactly?
So the carriages, things like that.
And was that on your scale, your schedule about things to review, by the way, of increasing fees?
That's part of the livability and tourism one that we're still working on, Councilmember Shane. So hospitality, this is what I wanted to talk to everybody about. We would like to change the way that we determine the amount we transfer into the general fund from the hospitality fee fund. We typically try to estimate the amount of costs from specific departments on specific expenses that we know that they cover, that basically is mostly tourism. We have established payroll codes for events and things like that. We try to capture it, but our system isn't the easiest and best to do that. And I just feel like we're probably missing a lot of expenses that we're covering out of the general fund that really directly relate with tourism. So, and we are in the process of procuring a new ERP system, which would probably make this a lot easier. But until that happens, I feel like we're kind of selling ourselves short in terms of how much we can transfer into the general fund for these additional costs. So we came up with a calculation that we feel is reasonable on how much we could probably transfer into the general fund. If you look at the number of average daily visitors the city invites on a daily basis, it's about 19,808 additional people in our city every day, which is a significant amount of people that we host and we provide services to. So based on that calculation, we would be able to transfer about 12.65% of our budgeted eligible general fund expenditures to help cover the cost of tourism. Does that make sense to everyone?
Well, it does. And I think, well, we'll keep going to the next slide or two. I bet we'll see this is this will help our general fund.
So our general fund expenditures base budget is $218 million right now. 12.65% of that amount would be approximately $28 million. We looked at all of our departments and we calculated 12.65% of specific expenditures that would qualify and estimated a cost of approximately $23 million that could be covered by hospitality fees. Because not every single department, like my department, you know, there's really nothing that I would do that would be eligible for tourism. So we excluded like my department. We looked at, and I can show you what we did if you want to look at it. So you can see how we calculated that $23 million. Just let me know. I have it on another slide or another. I can get out of this and go to it. But our projected hospitality fee revenues for 2023 are $23.5 million. So we always have previous commitments that utilize hospitality fees. We have agreements with the Gilliard and the IAM and all of that. So we could never transfer that full amount But we could transfer, and looking at what we have as a draft budget for our hospitality right now, about $11 million after covering those annual recurring commitments and the special capital projects that we're covering with hospitality fees. Sorry, my screens go black on me, and then I can't see. So we typically budget a transfer out to the general fund from the hospitality fee fund of approximately $5 million. So this would increase that amount by about $6 million. Any questions on that? Concerns?
Yeah, Amy. So what's going to be cut? I mean, that 11 million previously went almost someplace else, right?
I'm sorry, Councilman Moran, I couldn't really hear you.
If we transfer that increased amount, and I'm following you on this. As a matter of fact, it's very good work. So if we put this in the general fund, and it previously did not go in the general fund, where would we be taking it from? In other words, what was being funded out of tourism dollars now that this pro rata portion goes into the general fund?
So we're not, that's it, we're not cutting anything, Councilman Moran. We would still cover all of those annual contributions, all of that, and whatever projects we have that the hospitality fees are covering, those all still go. This would be whatever was remaining left over that we would have. We have $11 million that we could still transfer into the general fund, even covering all of those other expenses. So we're not cutting anything from hospitality.
So we're not taking from Peter to give to Paul.
Nope.
Thank you, ma'am.
But wouldn't it be true to say that, you know, from time to time, we come along with things like the Emmanuel Memorial or some other new project that we've been funding, and we're kind of limiting the potential for those kind of things, because importantly, we're moving more dollars to the general fund where we need it. Is that?
Yeah, so on an annual basis, you would just look at that. So if we did have another larger project that we needed to use hospitality fees for, then we could use that for the project. It's not something that we're committing on like we're saying every year now we have to do $11 million.
Right.
So that's the amount that's available for us to do that this year. It meets, I feel it meets what we are spending in the general fund. But we would need to probably come up with a financial policy regarding this that everybody would agree to, that basically said, you know, we could transfer up to however much after taking into consideration the annual contributions, whatever capital projects that fund needs to cover. So it's not set, we're not saying every year that this is what we would do. We would cover all of those other things we normally cover first. And then if there's extra left over and we have the detail to show that we have enough general fund expenditures that are eligible for that, then we could transfer it into the general fund.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I think it was very creative of y'all to look at this a little differently, so that, you know, in this upcoming year where we need to do a bigger adjustment for employee compensation, you know, that allows us to put some dollars over in the general fund to do that. So thanks for thinking outside of the box on this.
So we can, if you all are comfortable with this, and we can come up with a policy that we would bring to council on this.
Please do.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. You know, remember we would go back and forth with the chief, how many policemen he's got in the entertainment district versus not, you know, trying to, I think this is a much better way of doing it.
Yeah.
So just so you know, when we were looking at the hospitality budget, you know, we had the drainage discussion a while back, and there were some things that we could cover that had shortfalls. We've done that already. And covered the Market Street drainage project, the Market Street streetscape that was underfunded, all of those items, we've taken care of those between municipal accommodations tax and hospitality tax. And
Right.
state accommodations tax. So all of those projects are covered, just so you know that.
That's right.
Amy.
Councilmember Shade, did you have something?
I did. So Amy, what does state law allow us to do with this? I thought there was certain restrictions on these types of transfers.
Not transfers, you have to use it towards tourism related expenses. So we transfer our amount in every year, Councilmember Shea, to the general fund to kind of cover those expenses that the general fund is absorbing because of the tourist activity that we have in the city.
I follow
What
that.
I'm saying is that I don't think we're covering enough of our cost out of the general fund. And if we have some additional hospitality fee funds left, that we should be able to cover that through the transfer. So it's nothing, we're not going outside of what the law says we can do.
So if we take this money and this calculation, this formula you're using, we are taking money away from another source, so aren't we?
No, because it's, like I said, we're still covering everything that we normally would cover with hospitality. The thing is that right now we don't have a lot of large projects going on like we typically have had in the past that have absorbed a lot of our hospitality fees. So right now we don't have that so much. So we do have some additional hospitality fee money that we can transfer into the general fund. Because I do believe that we have a lot more general fund expenses that we're covering that could be covered by hospitality fees.
I got all that.
Calculation.
I got all that. But
Uh-huh.
if we increase $6 million from the hospitality fees to the general fund, that means we're taking $6 million away from something else.
No. It's from the hospitality fee fund that has the fees, it has the money available to transfer. We're not taking money away from anything at all.
All right. Maybe I'm not phrasing it right. We don't park $6 million somewhere, do we?
No,
Okay, I mean that if we don't transfer this increase of $6 million to the general fund, where would that money otherwise go?
it would sit in the hospitality fund balance.
Until you spend it on something else. Like I was saying,
Something else.
you're kind of taking away the potential of spending it on a future project. But you know, you're not taking it away from anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so ask my question. We would normally just park that $6 million someplace else and hold it.
It would have to stay in the hospitality fee fund reserve. That's where it would be. And it would just build up over time. That's, so we have a policy of 25% for all of our tourism fees. Like we have our general fund, we have the 20% policy, right? We have 25% for tourism. So it would sit there and we'd have well over our 25% until we found something to spend it on.
Okay, so like I said, we do park it somewhere and not until we spend it on something else. And
Yes.
whatever we're doing with it, it's gonna be $6 million short of something else and we could spend the money for.
No.
No.
All right, we'll clarify that for me then. Maybe, what am I misunderstanding? Dudley?
We got $6 million that would normally be, I guess you'd consider in reserve for something else in the future. But instead, we're putting it where we need it in the general fund because we have some real needs there for next year. That's the best way I can say it, I think.
That's how I understand it.
I understand that, and that part I got. But if we transfer it in, which I'm not opposed to doing that, I think it's a good idea. What Amy's suggesting, it helps us cover that much more expenses. But you're taking it away from a potential expenditure down the road somewhere. I mean, we never have an extra. I'm not saying it properly, I don't think, but the $6 million is going to be taken away and put into the general fund that would be available for some other project down the road. Potentially.
Yeah, potential, yeah.
Yes.
Let me see if I can help out. Councilman, remember, every year you've been on council, we've appropriated money towards the low battery wall, okay? It came from hospitality money, okay? And when we got enough money, we actually started work on the wall. So that was surplus dollars, if you will. I won't say surplus, but those extra dollars that were in hospitality fees, we didn't bring into the general fund. We kept it, in that case, it was a future project. Now it's an ongoing project. But Amy, my question to you, I'm sure you probably already accounted for this. So for the next, we're on what, phase 3 with the low battery wall? We've got 1 or 2 more phases to go. Have you accounted for that in this?
So if you remember, we got the revenue bond to
That's
finish
right.
that up
You did.
because it was moving along so much faster.
Thank
than
you
we
so much for
anticipated.
correcting me
But
on
the
that.
debt is paying, the debt is paid for by the hospitality fee fund.
So that's a great example of, remember, thank you for that, Amy. Remember, every year we probably put aside 4, 5, 6 million for the low battery wall. Now that we got that bond funding in there, in a sense, I guess you can find other projects, but this is a wonderful way. And she's right. We used to be pulling our hair out trying to figure some of these other expenses, how to get them out of other expenses for the city that tourism dollars could be contributing towards. I think this is a wonderful way to do it.
And you need to remember too, how much our hospitality fees have grown over the years as well.
Right.
So, you know, with the absence of very large projects, and we're just at a position now where, you know, we've finished a lot of the larger projects. I'm not saying there wouldn't be another one on the horizon, but for right now, we don't really have huge projects that we're funding, and it's an opportunity for us to cover our expenses.
I think that's great.
Member Gregory, did you have something else?
Yeah, and correct me, Amy. The way I understand it, if we didn't put this 6 million in the general fund and leave it for hospitality, we would still be using our general fund to pay for things that hospitality fees could have been paying for. Am I correct based upon the recalculating of the little recalculation chart you showed us a little earlier to
Yes,
get to the
that's
12.65?
That's right.
That's
I can
right.
show you if you want me to go through all the departments and how we kind of looked at that. I can show you if you want, but I mean.
No, I understand how you got there, and it makes sense to me.
Yep.
Because if we don't use it for assistance in the general fund, we're still going to have to pay that money.
That's right.
Okay, and
Yep.
all you're doing is offsetting that cost
Right.
considerably.
And if you look at it, like I said, we could cover up to 23 million based on what we've looked at in the general fund expenditures that we feel are eligible expenses. But, you know, we're only looking at about 11 because the hospitality fee fund is covering other things that are important to the city as well. So,
Yeah, I know where you're headed.
okay.
So that's why I was thanking Amy for thinking outside the box and taking a new look at how we're classifying and calculating what's eligible to move over, so to speak, from hospitality general fund. And just that reminder, Councilmember Waring, about the bonding for the low battery seawall, given what's happened with interest rates in the last months, are we happy we did that or what? Thank you for that also.
We're ecstatic, you know, interest rates went from, well, this is on a home mortgage, from 3% in February. You know, I'm on First Citizens Bank Board. It was 7.25% last week. From 3% fixed for 30 years to 7.25% last week. I think it bumps a tad below 7% this week, but man, somebody who can afford to buy in January can't afford to buy that same house in October.
That's right.
Right. But listen,
right.
let me play devil's advocate. Listen, I think this is great. I mean, if I can vote for it multiple times, I would, but I only get to vote for it once. But if I were to play devil's advocate for this, Amy, who would be the gnat that would, if they were to push against this to say what we're doing is against the law, how would you say, no, it ain't against the law? in this
Well,
area?
like it's 12.65%, which is a relatively low percentage. And like I said, we looked through every single department at their expenditures, and I feel that we easily can justify that, Councilmember Waring, in terms of the the departments that we're looking at, the police and fire themselves. I mean, 12.65% for everything they're doing
Right.
for that load of extra people in our city every day. I don't think we'd have a problem justifying that at all.
Thank you so much.
Mhm. Okay,
Amy,
so
you
we'll work.
mentioned, Amy, you mentioned the system in getting a better system to help you with this. What do we need to do to help you get that? I mean,
Well, we're actually in the process, Councilmember Shealy. So we have an RFP out right now. So
Okay.
we should be getting those back in January. It's just it's a big lift. That's a huge project, and it will take us at least 18 months, even to just get the first phase of that put in. And we're looking at a work order system too, because that's one of the other issues we're having with our historical buildings, that we could charge a lot more for the upkeep and all of that for those buildings, just some kind of system that will track those expenses. Just the employees that we have that are very specifically working just with tourists, when we're looking in parks and things like that, just something that can capture those costs better. And I think when we find that we have that better system in place, we'll be surprised at the number that is we get out of that. It'd probably be more than this 12.65%, I would think.
Good.
So we'll work on that, but just to
Well,
is
I'm gonna
everybody
take,
good? I'm sorry.
remember we were talking, I was early, I don't know, several meetings back, I told you we need another funding formula to fund this city. And this is answering part of that. I mean, I can't thank you enough for this, Amy. That's the mayor's right. That's great out of the box thinking. Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
so my screen is frozen now. Of course it is. I can't move forward.
So what we can do appropriate so your screen wouldn't be freezing and going black on you.
Sorry, oh, there we go. Okay, I was frozen for a second. Where was I? Here, right? Okay, sorry about that. So if we, like I said, we'll develop a policy, and then I just wanted to show you what the bottom line looks if we did do that $11 million transfer in. And so we would be about $18 million as a surplus right now. But remember, that's just with base budget expenditures. So that's where we are right now. So that gives us wiggle room to add additional things that the departments are asking for and to look at the pay plan. Any questions on that?
And this would be
Well, it's
before
actually, yeah,
any
17 million, not
potential
18 million. Sorry about that.
This would be before any potential millage increase?
That's correct.
Keep
Oh, I'm
on
sorry.
doing what you're doing, Amy.
I'm sorry.
Keep on doing what you're doing. I know where
Okay.
you're headed.
Where would that be, Councilmember Gregory? Okay, so if we're good to move on?
Yep.
Okay. So other revenue considerations, property taxes, like I said, we're not considering property tax increases in this budget at all, but like I said, $1.7 million is the value of a mill, and that is the same as last year. If 1 mill would generate 1.7 to 3.4, and 3 mills would be 5.1. Our millage bank is currently 6.85%, and that's equivalent to 5.2 mills. Any questions on that? So just so you know, we increased property taxes by 3 mills in 2022. When we set the millage and local option sales tax credit for 2022, we just did that in September for the 2022 tax bills. Sales tax are very strong. So we ended up having to set the tax credit factor at a higher rate than we originally budgeted. So due to that, the millage increase that we put in place is basically wiped out. So I will show you that. So, you see right here, our net millage for 2021, our 81.3 mils. Our net millage was 61.3. We raised it 3 mils, 2022 to 84.3, but our net millage is 60.8 because of that tax credit factor.
Amy, I'm always impressed by this graph, and here we are increasing the millage, but our actual net millage is lower.
Mhm.
And so if you look at that, by increasing our millage for 2022, our net millage is actually down 0.5 mils.
Yeah,
I mean, I see this, and you've presented this chart to us over and over. I'm just amazed by it, that how this works out. And I'm trying to look at this draft. I mean, over the past, since 2009, it's been a rather consistent net benefit in us doing this, right? Am I missing something with that?
no. So most our
So
citizens.
if you
feel
if
any
you look at
effect of that.
2009, 2009, you were 61.4,
Right,
and in 2022 was 60.8 net millage.
that's right.
So over that, and you can see the difference in the millage increases with a high in 2019 of 86.6.
Mhm. And that's when we increased the millage. We did 2 mils for general fund, I can't remember now, and then we increased the public safety infrastructure millage as well by a mil, I think. Or we did one, I can't remember now. Anyway, that was that year. So everybody go with us or have more questions?
Well, let me ask a question, Amy. Obviously I'm good with this. I know we had some hard times whether to put the full component of lost revenue towards a millage reduction, but I mean, I sure hope all 12 people on council know this or learn this. It took me a while to learn it. But it has really benefited taxpayers over, well, from 09 to 22. And there's the same thing I've been pointing at when it comes to St. Andrews PSD. Our net millage rate is less than 61. I know the gross is that, but we actually pay more to St. Andrews PSD when we annex a piece of property. And that agreement did not take into account lost revenues doing this. And it isn't something it's not an aberration. It's not something that we did one year and didn't do the next. As a result of that, we, as a city, been able to manage very efficiently the tax dollars taken in, and in particular, increases. And we got one of the biggest issues in the country today is inflation. I mean, somebody's going to get elected on the national level and congressional level based on inflation, and our actual net tax rate went down from one year to the next. I mean, this is great work. Now, a lot of us got some gray hair. Some of us lost hair, in particular during the pandemic, to kind of keep this going. But this is great.
Okay, I'll move on.
Just one really
I'm
quick.
sorry.
Is the magnitude of our loss credit dictated by the millage we set at all? Make sense?
No,
Okay.
it's all based on local option sales, tax sales, basically, and where we.
Got it. So it's purely a product of the strength of the retail economy and sales tax generation, things of that nature. So it's
That's
not
right.
like the more we
It's not.
raise taxes, the more there's a pull downward on the loss.
That's right.
that makes this even more impressive. So we raised taxes last year and taxes fell. Try to figure that one out. That's pretty amazing.
Well, this is really getting on a micro level, but shop local. I mean, even to the point that if you were shopping at the Lowe's, West Ashley or James Island, that's in the city versus somewhere else. You follow me? We get credit for the sales tax that way.
You're right. You're right.
And I don't have a slide on Berkeley County, but the same thing happened in Berkeley County as well, because their sales taxes were so strong as well.
But Mayor, take that one level up. By shopping online and not shopping local, we lose out on that local option sales. We lose out on that sales tax by shopping online.
Well, not now. Don't you pay sales tax online?
Amazon collects it now,
Yeah,
I think.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But more importantly, look at it. Let's say we didn't have lost revenue. Let's say it just wasn't there. Amy, our millage rate would be 84.3 this year.
That's right.
Wow.
And we're, right now the budget for 2023 is 84.3.
Thank
It's
you.
calculated on that anyway. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I know I have one on local option sales tax because we do always talk about this and whether we were to not keep 100% of it. So this is just one of that slide that talks about, if we kept 75% and if we kept 50% or 25%. And that's what that would be the total additional revenue to the city if we were to do that. For both Charleston and Berkeley County.
Amy, I'm probably jumping ahead, but when it comes to, and I know we all on the same page and wanting to, bring our compensation up for all our city employees, but if should we do what HR is recommending from top to bottom, where is that going to put city employees compared to Columbia, Mount Pleasant, Greenville, I guess, whatever. In other words, are we going to be drawn even with them, or will our employees be, we the largest municipality in the state of South Carolina? Will we be the place when people want to work for municipalities that they would turn to? I remember school teachers used to go to Berkeley County because they got paid more than Charleston County. I don't know if that's the case today or not, but that certainly was the case at one time. Will we be the high municipal payer, certainly in the region, I'm asking?
So next week, we have a meeting on Wednesday. I have some slides on this where we'll have a joint HR committee and ad hoc meeting together. I kind of gave up my ad hoc to do that so that we can talk about some of these things Councilmember Waring. So it just depends on what we want to do. But right now it's a cost of living is 8.6 or 8.7% right now. So we're talking about a COLA across the board for everybody that's commensurate with that. And then adjusting the 3 pay plans, the non-sworn and the 2 sworn pay plans by a certain amount, and looking at that as compared to all the other municipalities within our state. So we'll have that information for you on Wednesday.
And then given the reality, in particular about millage rate going down, net millage rate going down, will there be any flexibility if a bonus type situation could be installed? I understand everybody can't get a bonus, but will we have the ability to do that? Or do you need some time to even put some thought into that?
Give me a little bit of time. Let's have that conversation on Wednesday and then we can kind of go from there. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay. So just moving forward with the local option sales tax, just that's how it would affect depending on if we were to do anything with this, where if the 75% would increase, the impact to the citizens would be this here in terms of their tax bills, and for Berkeley County there. That's how much their tax bills would increase if we were to do anything with local option sales tax credit.
All right.
Okay, any questions on that? And then just our budget process. So we still have to determine employee pay, review all the departmental requests and our recommendations, determine what's included in the budget. We have to finalize the tourism budgets, the capital improvement plan, finalize revenues, and then review the stormwater budget. That's really what's on the horizon still. And then our next meeting, like I said, it's going to be October 22nd, and it'll be a joint meeting. So we'll discuss potential pay plan adjustments, family leave, some other benefits. And then I would like, if hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to start going over the departmental requests and our recommendations, enterprise funds, lease purchase. There's still a lot we need to do, but anyway, hopefully we'll get through some of that on Wednesday as well. And then if you have any questions, comments?
Amy, I do. When it comes, so I know we're still working, Mr. Mayor, on this, CWS collecting our stormwater fees, but, they want to get out of that business. And we need a more efficient, way of collecting, from people who just simply don't pay. We currently collect monthly, and I know we have Wolpert looking at having it applied to the property tax bill like Mount Pleasant does and North Charleston does. But there'll need to be a bridge to get us off of the monthly paycheck, so to speak, to going to once a year with property taxes. Have you had a chance to put any thought into that, Amy?
I haven't. Matt and he sent me the Wolper report for us to kind of go through. So I need to do that, and he and I need to get together for that so that when we come forward, like I said, with the stormwater budget, we can have some recommendations moving forward with that.
Okay.
I do need to have a conversation with the county about that as well, Councilmember Waring. And also there's the user fee that we discussed also in real estate that day as well.
Right, great. And Mr. Mayor, we got anybody from legal on this call?
I don't see anyone.
Yeah, I don't see anyone either.
One thing I want to throw out on those, and I know Councilmember Pell is on. Mr. Mayor, you know that landfill fee that we all have to pay on with our property taxes? When people don't pay that, I think it eventually attaches like a judgment or something to the property, so such that if the property is ever sold, you still have to pay it at that time to pass title. I'm wondering if we can pass that on to our legal department to see, can something like that be done on these people who didn't pay their stormwater fee? That's an attachment can be made to the property, such that if the property is ever sold, they still have to pay that bill to the city, as opposed to it being an uncollectible bad debt.
Other cities do it.
Yeah, I think if it goes to the property tax bill, and we talked about this some time ago, and I don't recall whether it's considered different legally, but we certainly would review that before we push it over to the property tax bill.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I know we need to put some.
Councilmember Appel is raising his hand. He might know something more about that.
Well, certainly want to defer to our legal staff on it. My gut tells me, though, that since it's technically a fee, not a property tax, it's just a fee that's on the property tax bill for billing conveniences. all of the statutory mechanisms that talk about attachment and all these other kinds of things, property taxes might not apply on the fee side. But we need to look into that, and that's just my gut reaction there, which, you know, has been wrong before and will be wrong again. My thought, very important issue to look into for sure. But one thing I think we certainly could do is we could just turn over all this bad debt to a debt collection company. Maybe they'll buy it. I think we all know a pretty big player in the debt collection business around here. He likes tennis. He's a pretty cool partner with the city. Maybe that's a conversation we can have. You know, I mean, we can monetize it quickly. There's maybe something else we can do with it. I don't know. But if we were leaving money on the table, especially these days, especially when we're dealing with stormwater, I think we ought to get creative, get all of our options, and get after it. And so I think this is very, very smart and worthwhile.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
there's a lot of cleanup to do with the stormwater fees. So I think all of that would have to be part of it.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. All
Okay.
right. Any other comments, questions, observations?
So
Thanks,
I just want to, we're going to go ahead with that hospitality fee transfer into the general fund that we talked about, and we'll come up with a policy. So that's going to, that will be part of the budget. Just want to verify that's where we're headed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Councilmember Gregory?
No, I'm ready to adjourn.
Okay. It is Friday afternoon.
It is.
I brought him in on his day off. Sorry.
Only for you, Amy.
I appreciate that.
All right, there being no other, I wish everybody have a great weekend and beautiful weather out. And thank you, Amy, for this report. It's certainly a much better starting position than where we were last year. So let's all say grace over that. Y'all have a great weekend. See you soon.
Thank you.
You too, Mayor. Bye-bye.
All right.